You found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the new play style that the Bulls are trying to incorporate on both the offense and defensive side. And do I trust Billy Donovan's ability to execute that new play style and adapt it to the players that he has here on this roster? We're going to talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And today's episode is sponsored by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Bulls fans, let's get into it today. By the way, guys, let me know if you're on the YouTube side, how you feel about the live stream. I think what we're going to do with Locked On Bulls going forward is we're going to make it a live show every day at 11 a.m. Chicago time, 12 p.m. Eastern. I know we're late on that today, but that's kind of the plan, to kind of give this show a little bit of a different feel. So let me know how you guys feel about that, both if you're watching it live or after the fact. But with that said, let's get into it, man. I want to talk about eventually the new play style that the Bulls are reportedly looking to incorporate for this team. But I want to talk about somebody who's kind of become the forgotten guy when it comes to Bulls conversations this year, and that's Ayo Dosunmu. Throughout the offseason, with the changes made to bringing in Josh Giddey, bringing in Jalen Smith, drafting Matas Busilis, the Bulls going a younger direction. The questions around how Zach LaVine is going to fit and incorporate into this team, things like that. I feel like we haven't, and by we, I mean me. I'm holding myself accountable to this one. I'm not going to hold you guys against that because you don't host a podcast. Some of you do, but, thank you for tuning in and watching me. Help you be a little bit better. With that said, no, though, all jokes aside, is that Ayo Dosunmu had just as big of a leap as basically Kobe White did last year. Now, he didn't have the volume output offensively, but you look at what Ayo Dosunmu had been to how he refined his game last year. Ayo showed himself to be a very important player on both sides of the ball for the Chicago Bulls, and no matter what role Billy Donovan threw at him, he played point guard, he played shooting guard, he played the most small forward and out on the wing that he has at any point of his career as well. Ayo Dosunmu answered that, and he got better over the course of the season. We know Ayo Dosunmu's averages, right? For those that don't know, 12.2 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 3.2 assists on 50% shooting from the field, and over 40% shooting as well from three-point range at the highest volume of his career as well, taking almost 4 three-pointers per game, hitting that at a 40% clip, solid shooting all the way around from Ayo Dosunmu. But when you dig into those numbers a little bit more, you see that he made even of a bigger impact than what most people expect. As a starter last year, which he did start 37 games for the Bulls, 15.5 points per game, 50% shooting from the field, 41% shooting from three, taking 5 three-pointers per game as a starter, 3.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, a little bit less than a block, and an over a steal per game. Ayo Dosunmu impacted the game of basketball for the Chicago Bulls. But let's take that a bit further, right? Because we're talking about how Ayo Dosunmu's role increased as the season went on. After we started 37 games last season, but after the All-Star break, he started 23 games, and in those 23 games post All-Star break, 17 points per game on 50% shooting from the field, 49.5. I'm rounding up. Now, the three-point shot came down a little bit after the All-Star break, 38% from three after the All-Star break, taking 5 three-pointers per game, but 5 assists, 1.5 steals per game, 2 turnovers per game as well. So, take that for what you will. And 3.5 rebounds per game as well. Ayo Dosunmu stepped up in every single role that he was asked for last year. And people may look at it as him taking a demotion, going to the bench. And I can understand that. I understand why people have that thought and that concept. But Ayo Dosunmu's moving to the 6-man role. He's going to be the first guard off the bench. And he has the ability. Ayo Dosunmu, I'm looking at as him being the glue guy next season, because you can see him fitting next to Josh Giddey. We already know him and Kobe White have great chemistry, and you can see him out there playing next to Zach LaVine. I'm not saying that Ayo Dosunmu in any way is the most important Bull. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that he is a highly important Bull for this to go for this to look as smooth as what it can. Ayo Dosunmu being able to come in, play multiple positions for the Bulls, also being one of the better Bulls starters next season as well. Being one of the Bulls' most important and most versatile players next season. It is going to be a key that Ayo Dosunmu gets going and that the Bulls prioritize him in a role next season. I don't want to overlook that. I looked at this in putting this episode together. I was thinking about a Modest Bucilis topic, right? I even thought about a Josh Giddey topic, and I sat there and looked at things, and I realized, hey, why aren't we talking about Ayo Dosunmu as much, right? And Ayo Dosunmu is, as a defender, even with that scoring output, and let's say Ayo comes down off what he did last year post All-Star break. Let's say he can be more around, let's say 14 to 15 points per game off the bench for the Bulls. With the brand of defense that Ayo Dosunmu also brings for the Chicago Bulls, that's where you start getting into something that could be special for Ayo Dosunmu in the NBA next year for the Chicago Bulls. You have to have role players. And that's one thing that we've learned and that we've seen over the last few seasons is that role players matter. And that's on winning teams. That's on teams that are trying to figure it out. Ayo Dosunmu is going to be one of Billy Donovan's most versatile weapons next season. And especially if that offensive growth that he had last year maintains, you're talking about an Ayo Dosunmu that can score. He can stretch the floor. He was our best transition player last year, on top of the defense that he brings as well. When Ayo Dosunmu was on the floor, the opposing team shot an effective field goal percentage almost 2% less than what they did when Ayo Dosunmu was off the court. That just is what it is. Now, they scored about the same per possession, but again, he brought that type of level of it, as well as when you look at the on-off for the Chicago Bulls on offense, for example. The Chicago Bulls were a better point per possession team by 1.9 points per possession. The effective field goal percentage for the Chicago Bulls was better by almost 2% with Ayo Dosunmu on the field. And the Bulls turned the ball over by 3% less when Ayo Dosunmu was on the court. Those are damn near elite numbers as far as when you look at role players and how they can impact the game of basketball. So I think it's really important next season that Ayo Dosunmu is prioritized for the Chicago Bulls. He's going to be that first guard off the bench. As a matter of fact, when you look at it, right, we know the starting five. I know some people fluctuate on who's going to start at certain positions, but Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, if he's healthy, and you have Nikola Vucevic, some say Jalen Smith, but either way, the players that we know for sure are going to be getting minutes in that rotation next year. Jalen Smith, he's the only other big. If he's not starting, he's going to be getting minutes. Ayo Dosunmu, per what he showed last year in veteran leadership and everything else, and probably Matas Bucilis as the rookie that got drafted high in the Bulls. Whole thing that they're trying to do now is prioritize the youth. Ayo Dosunmu has an extremely important role to bring for this Bulls team next season. And I think that Ayo being the first guard off the bench, again, I'm not saying he's the most important Bull. I still think that comes down to Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Josh Giddey as well, with how he's going to point guardsmanship this team. But you took away a potential backcourt that you knew had chemistry. Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, we know that they had chemistry as a backcourt. If you're taking that away and you're starting a different backcourt, you cannot take away from the role and the impact that Ayo Dosunmu had. So it's important. It's really important. Then you look at injuries, other type of things than that. Ayo Dosunmu's ability to guard 3 positions last year. 3 positions. And we haven't seen Ayo Dosunmu be as nearly versatile defensively as like Alonzo Ball or Alex Caruso as far as guarding 1 through 4. But who's to say that that can't be the next step of Ayo Dosunmu's evolution, right? And so Ayo is just as well as Kobe stepping into DeMar's role, which is hugely important in being that scorer, being that leader, being that clutch guy. Ayo Dosunmu stepping into the role left by Alex Caruso. And we know how impactful Alex Caruso was for the Chicago Bulls last season. So I do not want to overlook that. And that's something that in my own coverage of this team this offseason, I've kind of taken Ayo Dosunmu for granted. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So yeah, I'm starting off the show with an Ayo Dosunmu topic. We got some other things to get into, but I think that's how important Ayo Dosunmu, if he's on next year, defensively, especially defensively. What he brings offensively, we're going to say, again, between 12 and 15 points. If he can bring that, cool. But what Ayo Dosunmu does for defensive versatility and getting out in transition for this team is going to be hugely important. I see Winton in the comment section saying Ayo Dosunmu is the most important Bull off the bench. by far. And again, and I know Lonzo Ball stands are going to come to this after the fact. That is, if Lonzo Ball is fully healthy next year, Ayo Dosunmu, with his health, his versatility, and the fact that we know he's going to be able to play a bunch of minutes, we don't know what Lonzo Ball's minute restrictions is going to be. Ayo Dosunmu is the most important Bull off the bench next season, and even making certain things of that starting lineup work when he's able to come into that game, I think is going to be hugely important for this Bulls team. But I want to hear from you guys on this one. How do you feel about Ayo Dosunmu and the perceived role that he's stepping into for the Chicago Bulls next season? Do you agree with me that Ayo Dosunmu can be one of the most important Bulls to making this thing work as efficiently as what it can? If not, why or why not? Make sure you guys leave that in your comments as well down below. And don't forget, guys, listen, the text message line, the voicemail line is in the description. I want you guys to start leaving more and more voicemails. It's here as well on Locked On Bulls. We're going to try to incorporate you guys into the show a little bit more. But with that said, we're going to talk about this new offense and defense that the Bulls are reportedly trying to employ next season. And do I have faith in Billy Donovan's ability to get that done? That's the difficult part in all this, man. But we'll talk about all that. But first, we got to get into a message from one of our sponsors, and that is Gametime. All right, Bulls fans. So with that said, there's a little bit of delay there, but nonetheless, we'll fix it in post. With that said, man, I want to talk to you guys about Gametime. We've been talking to you guys about Gametime a lot. Gametime is one of the best places to get your tickets, not even just for sports. You're talking live events, get your comedy shows, get your concerts in. I know some of y'all are cheap, and don't take your lady out. Gametime can help you not be cheap and show your girl a little bit more appreciation. And ladies, you too. I'm not going to forget y'all too. Show your man a little bit more appreciation and go and take them to a game. You can go to Gametime to get the tickets, man. Listen, Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Listen, and I know I said treat your man right or treat your woman right. You can also treat them worse if they deserve less. Get the White Sox tickets. It's already one of the cheapest tickets, but you can get them on Gametime as well. Go and get your significant other some White Sox tickets if you don't really like them. Yeah, I said that. But Gametime Picks makes curation even easier to save more on sports, comedy, comedy theater, and more. They have all-in pricing. You can toggle this feature on, and it shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Gametime is also one of the best refund policies in the ticketing industry. If you find tickets in the same section and seat for less on another site, Gametime will refund you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Bulls fans. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I don't know what's going on with StreamYards today. I don't know if you guys can see me or not. Like when I put up the little ad thing, it's like disappearing or not. So if you guys can see me during that time period, I'm not going through a stroke or anything. I'm looking at the screen. It's not telling me what's going on. So I promise you my health is okay. Don't worry about it. Send off the dogs. I know Winton was getting ready to pull up to come check on his homie, but nonetheless, man, I'm good. I promise you. It's just it's technology. It's not me this time. But with that said, I want to talk about this report that came out as well that was tucked away in Daryl Marbury's or Mayberry. No, because he's not a Marbury. Mayberry's report. He said this. Look for the Bulls to unveil a new play style this season. More up-tempo offense with a twist on the defense. One that will shift the focus from defending the paint to protecting the three-point line. The Bulls allowed 39.5 three-point attempts per game last season, which ranked last. 2 seasons ago, the Bulls yielded 37.1 three-pointers on average, which ranked 29th. So the Bulls apparently are trying to fix one of their biggest shortcomings last season, and that's the three-point defense. Now, if you guys watched a lot of Bulls games last season, you knew we were wide open. We were wide open. Wide open. We were Tiana Trump out there when it came to guarding the three-point line. We just gave it to you. That just is what it is. We just gave it to you. So now, can I make that joke on Locked On? That was more of a Chicago Bulls Central joke, but I'm going to ride with it because we're live. But with that said, the Bulls gave up the three-point line way too easy last year. So hearing that the Bulls are trying to adapt a new offensive style. Now, here's the thing. I know that Billy Donovan for the last now 3 years has said we're going to play more up-tempo. We're going to play faster. We've been one of the worst paced teams in the league, right? So that's what we've been. But I will say this. I'm going to give Billy Donovan a little bit of credit for this case in the sense that we have a roster that now is more suited to playing up-tempo. Adding Josh Giddey, getting Kobe White to the shooting guard position, having two guards that can rebound the ball well, that can start your fast break helps, right? That helps a lot there. Then when you look on the bench, right, you have now Ayo Dosunmu, who was our best player in transition last year. You got Modest Buzelis there. You got Jalen Smith there, right? These are all three players that can all thrive in up-tempo type systems. You factor in Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, Torrey Craig, who's been in more up-tempo offenses before, more the trail man, but he's shown that he can do that as well. So the Bulls playing a more up-tempo offense just makes sense by the personnel that we have now. One of the reasons the Bulls did not play a more up-tempo system is that DeMar DeRozan just does not thrive in up-tempo. You moving off from DeMar DeRozan, that already is going to make your team faster, right? You add in the other things that we have going on, that is also going to aid to the Bulls' offense naturally playing a more modern style. Now, one thing with this Bulls team, three-point shooting is still going to be a bit of a struggle, right? So I know some people hold out more hope that the Bulls are going to be this better three-point shooting team. The way I look at it is that Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, those are main players you're looking at as being three-point shooters for you. They've all already been on this team. You didn't add not a single new three-point shooter. They've all been here before. We've been bottom of the league in three-point shooting. But, again, I've learned to never cap players. Maybe they come along with it and they bring it a little bit more. So we'll see what happens in that aspect of things. But offense, it makes sense. The defensive aspect of what we're talking about, right? We got young, athletic players that like to play up-tempo. The offense makes sense. That's not a shock to me. To hear that the Bulls are expecting to stop more out on the perimeter, that's where it becomes a shock to me. Because here's the thing that I have for you. At what point have Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Zach LaVine shown an ability to be solid perimeter defenders? Kobe White took a step up last year. Josh Giddey is better at guarding guards in the paint and in the mid-range if you look at his defensive statistics. So it makes sense that if they try to penetrate, Josh Giddey can guard them out there. Listen, if they're looking at this squad and they think that they have now the personnel to stop perimeter three-point shots and they do it, I'm going to be shocked. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm going to be shocked because, listen, we ain't got it, bro. Like, I don't see you. Like, what? You ain't got the answers. Now, Zach LaVine has, in credit, right? I'll give credit where credit's due. We've seen Zach LaVine step up at times before as a defender on plays, on drives, maybe even whole quarters. But are you expecting that for a full season, right? Now, Ayo Dosunmu is a solid perimeter defender. Patrick Williams can be a solid perimeter defender as well, right? We know that. We know that aspect of it. Modest Buzelis is an active defender, more in the passing lanes now than on ball defender. So if the Bulls are planning to stop leaving the three-point line at the Tiana Trump level, I'm wondering how. How are we going to get there? How? Because to me, what made more sense, especially when we heard things like Jalen Smith may have an opportunity to win the starting position, is that it kind of made more sense at that point to have a defense that we're trying to funnel everything in to where Jalen Smith can be that rim protector, kind of similar to what we did when we had Joakim Noah. Now, he's not nearly the defender or rim protector that Joakim Noah was, but similar to something like that. I thought that's what we were trying to implement. But if we're going from a team that's no longer packing it in on the paint, and we're going to be guarding more out on the perimeter, the thing that I have a concern about is we have some of the worst pick and roll defenders in the league. The worst when you pick Nikola Vucevic in pick and roll defense, it's like he has skates on. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? So that is an interesting standpoint in what this Bulls team is trying to get to with their defense. I expected a new offensive philosophy. A new defensive philosophy makes me also think this. What are Wes Unseld Jr. and Dan Craig bringing into those coaching meetings that they think that they can cook up a different system to get us there? That's the question that I have. And maybe that's the data point that I don't have. But hey, listen, you have assistants there. These assistants have been veteran assistants, and they've been behind coaches that have won championships. Maybe they're bringing a little bit of that mentality here. Maybe they added something that Billy Donovan has not seen in the last few years, which is a lot. And I'm going to give them some credit and benefit of the doubt. If we see a completely different defensive scheme to where we're guarding the three-point line better, look at what Dan Craig and Wes Unseld Jr. have brought to this team. But with that said, an offensive philosophy is only as good as the coach that is there to implement that offensive philosophy. And the Chicago Bulls have Billy Donovan as their head coach. The question I'm going to have up next is, can Billy Donovan finally adjust his system to the roster that we have? But before we get into that, I got to get into a message from our next sponsor, and that's FanDuel. All right, Bulls fans. So I've been telling you guys about FanDuel for a while. It's one of the more consistent sponsors here at Locked On Bulls. We're heading into the heyday of sports right now. MLB is about to go into the playoffs. NHL is about to start. NBA is about to start. Football is going into week 4. The WNBA is in the playoffs. Collegiate basketball is right around the corner. If you guys want to take advantage, you got to go to America's #1 sports book, and that's FanDuel. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. When you start with a $5 bet, we'll tell you how to do that here in a second. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on FanDuel, all on the same page where you can place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's $200 guaranteed. $200. Right in your hand, $200 guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel.com. Again, that's FanDuel.com. Go there. It's one of the best. You guys missed out on the 3 free weeks of NFL Sunday Ticket, but FanDuel got something else special for you. $200 cash money. No, in bonus bets, not cash money, but $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. All right, Bulls fans. So let's get into the last topic of the day today, and that is somebody that I love absolutely cooking, and that is head coach Billy Donovan. Now, those that have watched Locked On Bulls, Chicago Bulls Central, heck, it doesn't even matter. You could just follow me on Twitter. You know, I can't stand no Billy Donovan. I just can't. But the question that I want to have here is, can Billy Donovan actually adjust his system to what's needed for this roster? And the thing that gave me some hope, right? I want to look at Billy Donovan's time with the OKC Thunder. So Billy Donovan coached from 2015 all the way to 2020, the end of the 2019-20 season, when he then came over to the Chicago Bulls, right? So this Bulls team is trying to adapt a faster pace. And when you look at Billy Donovan's time with the OKC Thunder fluctuated anywhere between the top 10, as high as 4th in pace one season, all the way as far down. I think his last year there, the OKC Thunder were 21st in pace. So, and you know that OKC Thunder roster under Billy Donovan went through a lot of different changes, from initially taking over with Russell Westbrook and KD there, to then going to just Russ, to Chris Paul being there, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, so he's seen a lot of different versions of the team, much like we're going into a different version with this Chicago Bulls team. So we've seen Billy Donovan coach a team that was top 10 in the league in pace. He's done it. So we know that he has that in them. And one of the things that is most important with Billy Donovan's offensive philosophies, it comes down to having a point guard that can run and operate that system. That's one thing, even with my dislike of Billy Bubblegum Donovan, I've always said one of the things that make his system look the best is him having a point guard that can operate it and play it at a high level. That is what we want to see, right? Now, Winton asked a great question here. I'm going to throw this up on here. Can Billy Donovan adjust? Yes. Will Billy Donovan adjust? He says, hell no. Now, Winton is the resident Billy Donovan hater. It is what it is. It's earned. It's justified. I'm not saying that it's negative. It's justified. So the question here is that will Billy Donovan, with new assistants that hopefully have a voice in this, a point guard now that theoretically is almost perfect for Billy Donovan's system, in the fact that how he play makes. Josh Giddey, 90th first percentile as far as open shots generated for his teammates last season. He has that ability. Josh Giddey's a solid rebounder as well. He can start the fast break. He also is a player that, while he can score, specifically if he can get to the rim and the teeth of a defense, he's also a player that looks to pass first. So I'm not putting it all on Josh Giddey to make Billy Donovan's system work, because Kobe's going to share some of those ball handling abilities as well. And it comes down to how the perimeter players all kind of fit together, how well we rebound the ball, things like that. But I will say, having Josh Giddey with Kobe White, with Ayo Dosunmu, being the guys that are going to do primarily most of your ball handling and point guard play, I do feel confident that Billy Donovan can adjust to coaching a more fast-paced offense. Now, with that said, run and gun and up-tempo are very different. Don't want to see run and gun. I do want to see a more up-tempo team. But running more up-tempo was only one side of it. And this is where I get into my concerns over Billy Donovan, because I do think he can coach an up-tempo team. But the fact is that you can get up and down the court all you want to. If you don't have movement off the ball, it matters not. And that is something that Billy Donovan has not shown to coach into this team since he's been here with Chicago, the 4 seasons he's been here. We don't have off-ball movement. We don't run off-ball actions. We don't run enough catch and shoot. We don't slash enough to the rim. What do all these things do that I just named? That's what makes a more up-tempo offense more dangerous. We haven't done those things. So while you have the personnel to get out and run more up-tempo, do I trust Billy Donovan to adapt to the personnel that he has here? Listen, if you do, I wish I was where you are. Because as long as Nikola Vucevic is on this team, and Vuce is going to get shots, especially because he sacrificed some shots playing with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine is still going to be an isolation player. Billy Donovan hasn't run enough catch and shoots for him yet. I don't have the faith in Billy Donovan coaching things other than moving up and down faster to make a more up-tempo system work, personally. I'm just here to say my personal thoughts and feelings on this. I would love to be wrong. I think that the Bulls are going to play a more fun brand of offense. How successful that offense is comes down to not just how quickly you're moving up and down the court. It comes down to the off-ball actions. It comes down to slashing. It comes down to who's doing catch and shoots for you. Those things are important. And Billy Donovan hasn't shown me enough to that I have the blind faith until I see. Now, if we go through the preseason and the start of the season and it's there, it's evident, we see it, it's happening, I'm not going to turn a blind eye to something that my eyes can clearly see, but you got to show me. And that's where I am with Billy Donovan. You have to show me, right? That's what it comes down to. Miguel with a great comment here. Hey, if the defense doesn't create turnovers or misses, there won't be the open court for us to run. Exactly. The defense is a big part of that as well. A huge part of that, right? Because if you try to run up tempo out of inbounding the ball, the defense is already set up on the other side. What are you doing, right? What are you doing? So the defensive philosophies are a huge important part of that. And maybe that's why, you're seeing and hearing that Billy Donovan wants to stop the perimeter three-point shots, because if you can force teams to shoot from the three-point line, but you can play better perimeter defense to where they're not making them, hey, listen, that can get you out there in transition, right? So the defensive aspect of it has to be so tied in with what you're trying to do offensively. And we tend to kind of look at these things in silo, offense, defense. When you're running up tempo, now if you're just running a slower pace, right? If you're running early 2000 Spurs offense, it don't matter, right? But if you are trying to do this up tempo offense, the synergy between that, the symbiotic relationship between getting deflections, stops, and rebounds to how your offense, your up tempo offense works, it goes hand in hand. It goes hand in hand. So we'll see. We shall see, y'all. But yeah, that's my time for today, guys. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like I said, we will be live tomorrow at 11 a.m. Chicago time, 12 p.m. Eastern. We're going to try to make that the set time for the show. So again, you want to start showing up live with us? We're going to be trying to go live every day at 11 a.m. Chicago time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you guys stay in tune with us. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. Listen, I told y'all, we're going to bring some changes to Locked On Bulls. With Pat being here, we got to bring some changes. You guys already saw last week how we brought in the guests. I am proud to announce as well, the Cognac Boys will be on the pod every Friday from here until at least the start of the season. Once the start of the season gets here, we may change some things, but you will get the Cognac Boys, C-Dub and Bobby, here every single Friday as well on the Friday episode. So stay in tune for that one, man. I love you guys, man. Make sure you guys stay. You can follow us at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me at CEO Haize. Want to appreciate you guys and thank you guys for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every single day. Now, for your second listen, go and check out Locked On NBA, where the Locked On NBA analysts are giving you content 7 days a week, breaking down everything going on in the NBA. For myself, because Pat ain't here no more. It's just me, man. I love you guys. Go Bulls, and we'll see you guys tomorrow, y'all. Peace.